Hi there, it's Kevin with RogueDeckBuilder.com with this week's episode of the Market Monday. This is the actual episode of Market Monday. Today I want to talk about a topic that I have never talked about on this channel before, which is what I like to call bulk flipping. This is a strategy of going around to different local game stores and going through their bulk bins, commons, uncommons, sometimes rare, and picking out cards that you can get for 5-10 cents and then flipping them at either GPs or on buy lists, or just being the only person in your trade circle that actually is willing to carry around commons and uncommons. I used this strategy many times in the past. A lot of times it was for future speculations, for picking up cards like Faithless Lootings and the Thought Scours and Gitaxian Probes that I knew that were going to go up in the long term. And this only works if you're the only person at your scene, your store, that is doing this. But why I started doing this is I have never, like right now it's not as big of a deal to really maximize the potential value of my collection, but there's been times where in my life where I've been extremely dirt poor. I've told this story before. I at the time had just got out of a pretty toxic relationship where I was in a lot of debt, was going to school, was working a job that paid the bills, but was still, like, at my time period, I still had a lease on my apartment that was signed when we had two incomes, and of course when I split with my ex, it was down to one income, and so the majority of my paycheck was just going to still pay down like school loans, debt that the relationship had put me in, and the lease on this apartment that I still had for another year. So I didn't have a lot of disposable income, got back into Magic, and then built up a collection all the way up to $8,000, only to have it stolen one day out of my car after a very stressful day where I was going from vet to vet trying to figure out how to save my dog, who was basically, long story short, had a tumor in his blocking his large intestine. So literally my dog was starving to death and had all my Magic cards in my car, trying to go from vendor to vendor, trying to sell them to get the necessary funds to get the surgery for my dog. So it was a very stressful time. Almost quit Magic over the whole thing. Took about a couple months off of Magic and just really depressed, really beat down. I just didn't have any zeal left in me. And then decided to, not let people ruin my Magic experience, not let some just tragic or unfortunate events kind of ruin my Magic experience. So I started back trying to collect in Magic the Gathering, and I had to penny pinch. And this is definitely one of the ways to penny pinch, is just looking for bulk cards. Now, there's two ways to really do this. A is bulk bins. You go through your local game stores. A lot of them just don't care. You'd actually be surprised at how many local game stores are not very efficient with their Magic the Gathering collections or cards, because they don't really care to sell quarter cards, 50-cent cards, $1 cards. And the other way is to just go around people that draft a lot. So if you have a game store that does a lot of drafts, which when I was in Salt Lake, there was many stores that you had these players that didn't care about their uncommons and commons, and they just either leave them or donate them to the shop, or throw them away. You'd actually be surprised at how many people would throw cards away. And so I'd be the dumpster diver, picking up cards and just looking towards the future. I actually made a killing on Thought Scours and Gitaxian Probes. I think I sold out of Gitaxian Probes at $4 a piece. And Thought Scours, I was trading for $1 for the longest time, and I had boxes full of Thought Scours back from when Innistrad was being drafted, Dark Ascension Innistrad. So this is the strategy of, in standard sets, of really looking at commons and uncommons that actually have real value. And you can actually do this with quarter cards that don't show up on this list. I think that they might be, 70 cents, 75 cents? That might be the cutoff here for MTG Goldfish for showing of uncommons and commons that go above that price tag. But a lot of people just don't understand that some of these cards have value, and if you're the only one at your store actually having these on hand, you can actually trade up towards rares that are actually easier to unload. And then some of these actually do have buy list prices. If you go over to mtgprice.com, you can see that many of these have buy list prices for 15, 20, 25 cents. And so you get these for relatively free. You can trade these into store credit for a lot of these online stores, and then trade them into the rares that you need, and then just, prepare for the future. So right now, first there's two formats I really like to target. One is just standard when it is right at the height of drafting, because you can get these cards like crazy at the moment, and then they'll start to go up in value. And a perfect example of these is Thraben Inspector. Look at Thraben Inspector, 86 cents a pop for a common that was heavily drafted over Shadows over Innistrad. This Thraben Inspector moved up, whoa, bugging out on MTG Goldfish right now. Thraben Inspector was a card that has just climbed since its height of draft. So here, you could find it for bulk. This is a bulk card. You can find it everywhere. No one's charging for this. You can go and find it out of your commons and uncommons at your local game store. If they sell them for 5 cents a piece or 10 cents a piece, you just eat them all up. And it has just increased in value, eightfold, I would say, from its 10-cent common list. And is actually something that stores do have a buy list for, and you can actually trade to people that need them, like players that came in to the standard environment after Shadows over Innistrad is drafted, right around here, actually need these cards, and they don't exist as much now in the bulk bins. There's actually a better card right now in the format than Thraben Inspector that is its height of draft season, which you can come over here to MTG Goldfish and go to Format Staples, and it will pull up either Standard, Modern, Pauper, format staples, and you can see there is a common that is in 61% of all decks called Attune with Aether, which I don't think is going anywhere, which is going to follow a very similar trajectory as the Thraben Inspector. So, of course, this card is very, very powerful with adding 2 energy and a land, so fixing and a land. It's on power level with Traverse the Ulvenwald, which we've seen what that card can do in as far as price is concerned. So this is a very specific example of something that I would be checking your draft trash and checking your bulk bins for Attune with Aethers. I don't like to spend actual money a lot of times on these type of cards unless they're in bulk bins for 5-10 cents. Like, I don't say go on TCG Player or eBay and start buying these out, because it's just something that's hard to flip. Now, a little bit of a disclaimer alert, my Market Mondays are geared towards collectors, players, more than they are to speculators or flippers. The problem if you don't have an outlet like an online store or a local game store like I do is flipping cards like this, even if this gets up to $1.25, $1.50, is usually not profitable when you get killed by the fees. TCG Player has a flat fee for every card sold. Like, every transaction sold, I believe, is 50 cents per transaction fee. And eBay has a listing fee a lot of the times. And so you never get those, like, you have to sell things on eBay. I think the sweet mark is like $3 to $4 before you're really profitable if you're going to track the package. Especially, it's going to have to be like $4 or $5 because the tracking is going to cost you, what, like $2 to track a package. And then the TCG Player, you got to get above around the $2, $3 mark just to break even with all the fees associated with that. And so cards like this, even if you're selling them in play sets, even if they get up to the dollar mark, don't become profitable. So what I'm really talking about with my Market Monday series is trade fodder, or just manage a good collection and being a power trader. And you can do that if you're in a larger area just by store hopping or even group hopping, trading casual cards to casual players for competitive cards, and then flipping around and doing the exact opposite to competitive players trading for casual cards, and always trading up at that point, because they'll usually give you the benefit of the trade if they're trading casual cards they don't care about for competitive cards, and vice versa for the casual players. So the one other silver lining that you can have with this type of strategy is then if you go to GPs, a lot of times you can go to there'll be always one vendor that's like sold out of these cards that will want them, and you can buy list them all. I talked about it, how I did with the Haste Pig out of M15 or M14, whichever card that was. If you control Mountain, it gets +1/+1. You can spend a red for haste. I was able to sell those off for very, very, even if it was like 50 or 70, I think it was $1 a piece. I think they're going for $2 at the time, and sell them right to the vendors for $1 a piece. And just literally went around to people, to the trash bins, like people throwing these away, and then just going to a vendor and actually getting some value out of it. If vendors don't even give money for them, a lot of times they'll give store credit, and then you can just trade them for actually valuable cards. So Attune, of course, is my big pick for a Thraben Inspector-like card that will eventually go up in value. So I don't suggest really going over Shadows or Innistrad or Oath of Gatewatch unless they have playability in formats like Pauper for the long term. There is Reckless Bushwhacker, which I highly do like. We'll check out Reckless Bushwhacker here. And it clicked on Reflector Mage, so we'll do Reckless Bushwhacker. Reflector Mage is a card that if it goes down below even more, I think you should pick up because it does seem modern playable at the time period. But I'm not going to focus too much on Reflector Mage because a lot of those are already eaten up and you're going to have a hard time finding them in bulk bins. This is a card I can't keep in stock. I literally cannot keep this in stock at my store because this is a budget card and it has a lot of synergy with Burning Tree Emissaries in Modern and other type. The Surge is actually easier for this card to be cast than the Goblin Bushwhacker. Goblin Bushwhacker does have an advantage over Reckless Bushwhacker because it can be played in Pauper, but I think this one's more powerful in Modern than the Goblin. A lot of times they're in what's called an 8-whack deck, so you play both of them. And zoo-based strategies, this one's the Surge is a lot easier to cast with the one colorless. And again, you can get the green mana to cast the colorless and the red from the Burning Tree Emissary, so it makes that a lot better strategy. These are very viable in Modern. These 8-whack decks are still very good. Even though they haven't put up numbers in the recent past, all you see is like Frontier here, they are very viable in Modern. 8-whack can still kill on turn 3, turn 4 consistently. Right now, though, we are more of an all-in strategy with Death Shadow being the prime aggressive type strategy because it's great about breaking up combo decks, as well as being a deck that can kill on turn 3, turn 4 quite easily. So, but if we ever do go back to a go-wide type strategy, if people really go all in on the Fatal Push and the Path to Exile, just targeting down Goyfs and Death Shadow type cards, then a go-wide strategy will be viable in Modern again, and Reckless Bushwhacker always goes in those type of strategies. It's had a trajectory that I definitely like. See, if you would have picked these up during the height of their draft season, it would have had a nice return already in Oath of the Gatewatch. So going over some other ones that I think have some long-term playability. If you have any Grasp of Darkness or Void Shatters, I really think it's the time to get out of them. I've actually sold out of Void Shatters in playsets on TCG Player and eBay. You'd be surprised you can actually sell these playsets. We are kind of rolling the dice, though, with eBay. I know that Zach does ship with just a stamp, which eBay can really... they always side with the buyer, so someone could easily screw us on a package from eBay. And I do know that you have to, like, if you want to get their super sale rating, I believe you have to track every package. Correct me if I'm wrong there. So I don't know about Void Shatters, though. These are cards that you can easily... When I buy bulk, I find Void Shatters like crazy, and then it's just free money at that point. That's another strategy, too, is just buying bulk. I buy bulk at $3 per thousand. Sometimes I'll give $4 per thousand if I know they have older cards. And if it is legacy cards, I have been known to give $5 per thousand of mixed commons and uncommons. You want to find unsorted. You want to find people's collections where they just didn't care. A big red flag is if they're sorted, because that usually means it's picked through. And so a lot of times it depends on my rate that I'll give. But $3 per thousand, you seem to always get your money back. And I was actually doing this before I owned a store. I just go to all the drafters in my scene because I drafted a ton. I was a limited player before I was a constructed player. And so every Friday Night Magic that I would do at the store that I played at, they'd always have a limited and a constructed. And I'd rarely play in standard. Unless there was a brew I wanted to try out. But this is pre-Rogue Deck Builder. This is I really got addicted to brewing, and still back during like the Cobblade format is pointless to play standard. Standard was a pile of garbage like it is now, so of course I'd go to limited. And limited was you get to know a lot of people in your, make friends with a lot of people in your you see the same people over and over in your pods and whatnot, and just your locals. And so I reached out to a bunch of them like, hey, what are you doing with all those cards? And limited players tend to be limited players, so they don't really care about, maybe they'll have 1-2 constructed decks, and then not care about the rest of their cards. And I was able to buy all of the commons and uncommons from multiple people, or even trade them. So I remember one guy wanted some Wormcoil engines, and I had some Wormcoil engines, and then just traded them for, boxes of they kept in like shoe boxes. This is how you'll get them. They'll go home, they'll pick through it, throw it all in a shoe box, forget about it. And like one of the times, I think it was like M11 that I was able to get like tons of Johnny Pridemates and Squadron Hawks and cards like that, because this person had drafted during M10, M11. Ponders were in there, things like that. Then they never thought of really taking out of their bulk because they just played that set like crazy. So that's another strategy, just getting the sheer numbers of these cards. It's without a store, though, it's hard to unload like the what we call true bulk that has no ability of ever going up in value. Like I separate it after I buy bulk into what I call bulk and true bulk. So money cards, of course, come out, and then bulk goes into, if you look back in some of my Gone Roger episodes, you'll see that the towards the back of our store there'll be a shelf with a bunch of boxes in sets, and then even further behind in the spare room we have is tons of boxes full of cards. That has what I call bulk in it. It is cards that every now and again you'll have a person want for commander deck. They have either casual playability, pauper playability, competitive playability, or a unique ability that can be broken in the long term. Think of like Burning Inquiry type cards where they're bulk, but as soon as a card like Waste Not gets printed, then they actually have some playability. So also cards that don't have any immediate value but do see play, like Cathartic Reunion, Tormenting Voice, get in what we call bulk. True bulk gets thrown in, if you see in the corner by the fridge in our Gone Roger episode, that is all true bulk. That is cards that are outclassed by other cards that usually have no chance of ever going up in value. Every now and again people sift through it and find some cards that we just miss, or there will be a card that somehow goes from true bulk status to bulk or even has value, but it's just a long shot at that point. So I don't try to get too picky as time goes on, but if you are trying to start a collection and you do need to penny pinch, I can't stand the excuse of people that are like, I don't have the money. Like I always get these players like, the only reason you beat me is you have money. And they have some truth to that. You know, we do have some older standard players that literally their success is because their wallet size is bigger than the teenage players. They aren't necessarily a better player when they play in sealed or draft. They get completely obliterated just because, you know, I think that limited is, or draft is the true skill format for sure. As the luck is minimized because everyone on the pod has kind of the same pool to work with. Yes, people can get bomb rares. Yes, sometimes the other side of the table has just more quality cards for the first, second, third pick, and the other side of the table gets all the, you know, the draft trash, the bulk rare, unplayable garbage like commander-based cards, or, you know, lands that don't add to a particular powerful pool. So yes, that can happen in limited. But I still think that draft is the true indicator of a skilled Magic player, at least at the local game store scene. So anyway, where was I even going with this? So it's all about managing your collection properly. A lot of these people that complain to me about not having a powerful deck are the same people that just buy pack after pack after pack after pack. And buying packs is the worst use of your money imaginable. A pack, you can go over to donglare.com and just see the estimated value of a pack. And a lot of these in-standard packs are under $2. So if you're spending $4 for a booster pack, you are buying a lottery ticket that is going to take you, it's going to have a 50% chance, you're going to lose 50% of the value right there. And even in good sets, you have a hard time getting over the $2.35. And that's still, like, that's a lot of work to get the full value of a pack, because that's still counting, like, cards that have some value, but it's hard to turn, like rares and bulk, like under $2 rares, bulk rares, commons and uncommons. And so a lot of the people that complain about never having a good standard deck are the same people that continue to just chase cards out of booster packs and just are unwise with their money. So if you're wise with your money, I showed that in other stores too, where I remember like playing Pauper Standard versus, or what we call, I think it's called Peasant, or where only people used to complain that I had access to all the store's cards, so that's my only way I was winning all these FNMs. So there was a time period during Return to Ravnica where I only played with uncommons and commons and still won, or did 3-1s or 4-0s at the majority of the standard FNMs we played in, just because I showed people could be very successful with commons and uncommons. But anyway, now I'm getting very sidetracked. Going back to cards that you should be looking at. So just using these kind of sets is these Zendikar sets of what, like Grasp of Darkness can go up to $2. This was a bulk card. Void Shatter was very bulk, went up to $1. I think it was actually above that, a little bit higher. And you can see even from like the Lightning Axe is now up to $1. Duskwatch Recruiter went way down. At one point was a $3 card. And then you can see even out at Eldritch Moon, there's Blessed Alliance and Incendiary Flow that have creeped up. I like both of these in the long term. as I think they both have playability in formats beyond standard. So this whole purpose of the video is to really look at Kaladesh cards. The Aether Hub is a staple of a staple. We could see this card be a $4 card by the time it starts to rotate. Another reason that I like Kaladesh is it's got a shelf life longer than the Amonkhet. Amonkhet is going to rotate the exact same time as Kaladesh, and so these will be 6 months, 3 months longer. They're getting their shelf life like right now. They'll still will be opened from time to time, but they'll start to be stripped. Their supply will start to be stripped earlier than Amonkhet. So Amonkhet's going to be drafted for the next 6 months, and so that's 6 months into the next rotation that it's going to be drafted. And so for it to increase its value, it's going to take longer. Otherwise, Kaladesh, it's stopped drafting as soon as Amonkhet comes out. There will no longer be people drafting 2 Amonkhets, or was it 2 Aether Revolts, 1 Amonkhet, or vice versa. And these cards are gonna start to diminish from the supply. So I really like Servant of the Conduit. I really like Whirler Virtuoso, Rogue Refiner, Blossoming Defense, even Glimmer of Genius, Aether Hub. All of these I think have a lot of potential to becoming those $2, $3 that you often see from a standard environment. Kaladesh actually is starting to see a very powerful set. At first, when it was still the Delirium was everything type set, we saw the Pro Tours were dominated by Kaladesh Aether Revolt cards, but now with the vehicles and the energy strategies being pushed over the top, it's going to take a lot from Amonkhet to really compete with vehicles and energy. I think that we're going to have a power dump in Amonkhet, so Kaladesh will be a very insanely powerful set, and they're going to tone it down a little bit in Amonkhet and the next set. So just look especially like Gifted Aetherborn. Then the Widening Constrictor sees a ton of play in Frontier and in Modern, and a lot of these other cards in the Aether Revolt. So let's just jump right into the Aether Revolt. I like second sets too because they aren't opened as much as the first sets, and so their commons and uncommons especially have the chance of going up in value. So you can just go over here and then click on Aether Revolt, and you can. What I love about MTG Goldfish is they have so many ways to sort. We're just going to click on uncommons here, and the best way week over week is to see is watch this either percentile gains or just these gains here in the weekly category to see if there has been any movement. Because one thing about Goldfish is people come over here and they go prices, movers, and shakers, and there will be cards that will never hit this movers and shakers list that are going up 3, 4, 5 cents per week, and all of a sudden, 5 weeks down the line, or even better, 10 cents per week, they've gained 50 cents, $1 in a month. And pretty soon they went from a bulk rare to a $4 rare, for example. So, and they'll never hit these little daily changes, never weekly changes, just because they have such a subtle change. So going over to Aether Revolt, you can see there's been some movement with Gifted Aetherborn. It's a very powerful card, Death Touch Lifelink. The only problem is black just isn't a color that's seeing play right now in standard because most of the black decks are just splashing it for Unlicensed Disintegration. Speaking of Unlicensed Disintegration, I still think that's the best card in standard at the moment, and I don't think it's going anywhere, and it didn't show up on that price list, so of course it would be a one you'd want to look in the bulk bins. So here we have Rogue Refiner. We have, so anything over this 20 cent mark usually is indication that it's above bulk. So anything above the 21 cent mark is mean people are actually buying this, because how it works in vendors is when you go on when you dump everything on eBay and TCG Player, they are just putting all uncommons at 20 cents. So if they've gone above the 20 cent mark, it means there's been some movement and it stripped away those below 20 cent cards. And now the only vendors that are left are ones that are putting them at 25 cents. So for example, people have actually bought Treasure Keepers, and it's subtly gone up from 20 cents to 25. And this could be one of those cards. I love this card, by the way, Treasure Keeper, because it's got almost this cascade type ability to it. And in a value-based deck, this card could see play. So when it dies, you reveal the top cards of your library until you have a non-land card, and you can cast converted mana cost 3 or less, or put the card into your hand, right? No. It just reveals until you find one. So, pretty sweet card, 3/3 for 4 mana. Could definitely has the chance of seeing play. So this is a card, for example, if I was sifting through bulk versus true bulk, this would go in bulk, not true bulk, because this has the potential of seeing play in Commander, Standard, etc. So think about that. Reverse Engineer does see play. And as you can see, it got stripped from the 20 cents all the way up to 25 cents. Not very significant, but who knows if a improvised type deck does see the #1 play in the next base set. Improvise could be a strategy that, if Saheeli didn't exist, could be a tier 1 or tier 2 deck that could actually go toe-to-toe with Mardu. I do know that the Grixis Improvise has a very good matchup versus Mardu. It's very 50%. The problem is it's terrible versus Saheeli. Rogue Refiner sees so much play in Standard. I think right now is the perfect time to get into it because I don't see this card going anywhere unless the color combination gets kind of thrown out. But it's a very popular color combination. You can go into Sultai, you can go into Temur, and you can also go into Bant. Bant Coco decks in Frontier want this. I think that this card actually can see play in Modern. I think it's on par in power level for a draw card. Think Kitchen Finks. This, to me, seems just as good as Kitchen Finks. Yes, you don't get 2 creatures for 1 in 4 life, but you do get a creature, or a card, right off the bat. And it's got a 3/2 body, very similar to the Kitchen Finks, that can actually turn the tides quite easily, or just play a nice little blocker and kill any 3 toughness creatures trying to attack in. The Narnum Renegade, this card is started off at a higher price tag and slowly has been going down in value, but it still does have, with fetch lands, it's really, really good to get a 2/3 Death Toucher out for 1 mana on turn 1 in Modern. So Zoo decks, there is some Revolt Zoo decks that do play it, and who knows, in Standard this could see play. It's a 1/2 Death Toucher for 1, and so a lot of the decks, that's a great card. The potential of becoming a 2/3. The Johnny's Comrade is just a card out of the box set. Felidar Guardian, I think the only reason why this card hasn't gone insane in value is people know it's going to get banned. It's going to get banned. We all know it's going to get banned. Renegade Rallier, this card is seeing tons of play in Modern. In various either Death and Taxes based decks as a value-based card, and Collected Company based decks, and even Zoo Revolt decks. I've seen it actually see play in a Martyr Life deck when you're splashing green as a way to get Martyr the Sands or your Killcon, the Sarah Ascendant, back. And so I think this is the perfect time at its draft height to start investing in the Renegade Ralliers. This will be $1 to $2 cards by the end of its standard life, I would assume. And if it does see play, like if a green-white humans deck does see more play, this can get back your Thalia's Lieutenant, for example. So do not underestimate this card whatsoever. The thing that makes it good in humans is it's something you can actually get with a clue token being sacked. And so by turn 5, if you just want to get a Thalia's Lieutenant back, you have the mana, you sack a clue, Renegade Rallier into Thalia's Lieutenant, and give your creatures a little bit more burst. Give Day of the Born's one that I just too good not to see play eventually in a deck. And then we have Winding Constrictor, which I have no clue how this is under $1 because it's not only a casual favorite, but Frontier, it's amazing. On Modern, it's amazing. The ability even gets better with, speaking of cards that get better with Amonkhet, it gets better with -1/-1 counters. This is just a duh. Fatal Push still is way expensive because of how much it sees play in both Standard and Modern. You can even go down and look at like some of these cards that do see play, like Servo Schematic and things like that. But these are the ones you really want to focus on. So let's go over to Aether Revolt, or Kaladesh, excuse me. Kaladesh, these cards have a harder time of going up in value in the long term just because of how much more this is opened. Harness Lightning, though, has been going up in value. It's a key card of $1.35. Blossoming Defense, this sees play in Modern. $1.10, has an insane ability on an uncommon, +2/+2 and hexproof. Very push card as far as power level is concerned. Yeah, because this is more the +1/+1. The one that does it for 1 mana for +1/+1 just isn't enough to really justify putting in a pump deck. +2/+2 is good. It's really good at Infect and Double Strike based decks. Glimmer of Genius is still the go-to card for the Torrential Gearhulk. So it also adds energy. This card sees a ton of play. Would be a lot better if the Saheeli decks did not exist. Serving the Conduit is a must pick up. This card has seen play in Aetherworks Marvel decks and now Saheeli decks forever. I mean, it's got an insane share of the meta of how many decks this actually goes in. And this card really confuses me because Unlicensed Disintegration is in tons of decks. It has actually even seen Modern play in various decks. The Affinity, I believe Affinity has splashed it before because it's 3 damage and destroy a creature instant speed. So you can see in Standard it goes in Mardu vehicles as a 4 of, as well as the red-black aggro. It's the only reason they're running artifacts in this deck. So synergizes with Walking Blissa, Scrappy Scrounger, even Toolcraft Exemplar, Heart of Quran, all of those cards. It is the premier go-to removal to also take care of Saheeli. This card at 45 cents seen as much play as it's seen. That is insane that it's only 45 cents. This will be your new Grass of Darkness that will hit the dollar mark. So keep that in mind. We have the other cards again that see play of going up, like being stripped from this 20-cent auto. The vendors put it in auto on TCG Player and eBay. Some of these cards being stripped is like Clinton S. Crane. We've seen that in not Metallic Mimic decks, the Colossus, Metalwork Colossus decks. Long Tusk Cub, insanely good card in Energy. Energy sells all its pieces. It's just Mardu's a little bit better at dealing with Saheeli than like the Long Tusk Cub. But this you could see like a Jund Energy deck coming back, or just a Green-Red Energy deck coming back. I actually like Naya Energy because you do get another double strike card out of white from Amonkhet. Voltaic Brawler also fits in that. These are the cards when I get a new player coming in and like, what's a budget deck? These two cards. I always build them Green-Red Energy. It's very straightforward. It's powerful. Can kill on turn 4 quite easily. You still have the Pummeler and the Bristling Hydra that are very inexpensive. Again, we get a lot of cool new cards out of Amonkhet, but there's just enough pump spells between like Borrowed Hostility all the way to what do we get out of the new one that you can split 2 +2/+0s on 2 different creatures, or give 1 creature +4/+0. So I think these are also definitely pretty good pickups. The Filigree Familiar is fine too. It sees enough play in its respected formats. Ceremonous Rejection is a great sideboard card. We've seen sideboard cards go all the way up to $1, $2 in the past. And Foundry Inspector just gets insane as far as long term is concerned for a lot of the playability Commander and those type of formats. So right now is the prime time to be looking at these, because people still don't think these are worth any money, when in fact they actually have a lot of share in the format staples. Let's see how many we can throw here that actually show up on this list. So wow, commonly played cards in Standard. Okay, Attune with Aether, Harness Lightning, Rogue Refiner, Servant of the Conduit. The top 4 we talked about. Whirl of Virtuoso goes in that strategy, or in the bulk cards. Negate has just been printed too many times to make it relevant. You'll find these in my bulk bin like crazy, my true bulk bin, just because Negate gets printed way more than you could ever strip it of its supply. By the time you sell any of these, it's going to be reprinted in another set. Unlicensed Disintegration is in here. We have the Thraben Inspector, and Feldar Guardian. They're uncommons or commons. Shock is the same problem that with Negate, gets printed too much. Natural Obsolescence could see a little bit of a price increase as a common. I mean, it's something that has true value. Then we have Woodweaver's Puzzle Knot, Aetherworks Marvel. It's not going anywhere. There's a stupid combo with Aetherworks Marvel now with the new WinCon, the 7-mana white spell, because this puts it back. You look at 6 cards, so you cast. So this is how dumb it is. So with Aetherworks Marvel, you cast the 7-mana cost spell that gains you 7 life. And then you put it back 6 down or 7 down after you cast this, and then Marvel again, and then you'll cast something out of your Marvel, and then you'll draw a card, which will be your 7-mana WinCon. Just recast it again on your turn and win the game. So Aetherworks Marvel is stupid combo, synergy with the new white spell that you just have to cast it twice to win the game, and it only cares if you cast the second one from your hand. Anyway. We're getting Natural State. There's another card I've been throwing. I mean, it might actually rotate before it goes up in value, but the good news about Natural State is it does see Modern and Pauper play. So if you come down here, doesn't look like it's seen any play in Modern at the moment, but I have seen decks that have put it in Modern before, but it does see a lot of Pauper and even Frontier play. And yes, it has stripped its default 10 cent, 15 cent up to 20 cents. So, you know, maybe this last 6 months before rotation, or 4 months, what do we have left till September? April, May, June, July, August, September. We have about 5 months left. It could finally, the supply strips the demand, it goes up in value. We have Glimmer of Genius that hits it. We have Winding Constrictor, which is a very popular card. It's the whole reason to play a certain strategy. And you just keep going down. Long Tusk Cub, Anticipate, gets printed too much. Stasis Snare is one of those cards I talked about. So you see how far Stasis Snare is down the list of playable cards, but it got all the way up to $1. and this card was down to 50 cents at one point. It did see a lot of play right off the bat. That's why it kind of stayed at the dollar. But yeah, it went down to 50 cents at one point, so it's doubled its value since its height of drafting. So anyway, that is just some food for thought with cards that you should be looking for bulk to pick up. And if you don't have a lot of expendable income, this is the way to do it. Another way you can, like I said, you can trade actually rares for people's commons and commons. You just need to just ask. That's the first thing of sales. The first thing you learn if you want to be a salesperson is just ask. You ask people, can I buy this? Do you have any of these? Like if you want to be a power buyer, hey, do you have any commons and commons lying around that I can get off your hands? Hey, do you have this? As at my store, people will be like, hey, I want to get in the draft. I'm like, hey, well, let me see your rares. Or even if they don't want to, I'm like, oh wow, you have a big trade binder. You're looking to unload some of those cards. And then that's a lot of ways that I get. We buy all rares for 10 cents a piece. We also have a 2-for-1 bin. You can trade two rares for one, or for one of my rares in my 2-for-1 bin. And you'd be surprised at how many people do that. And I know that you're not a store, so you don't have the same advantage that I do. But you can still, when you're waiting for a draft to happen or a standard just right before, usually people show up like an hour before an event. Just say, hey, do you want any of these? You want to unload these for this? I mean, they're not worth anything to you, but they're worth something to me. And you'd be surprised that people will give you such a huge benefit of a trade, like, 4 unlicensed integrations for a dollar card, for example. That's a good strategy. And I'm proof that it works. I targeted Thought Scours. I targeted Gitaxian Probes and those specific cards that went from commons to all the way up to $4 in value. And it's Young Pyromancers. I targeted Goblin Electromancers like crazy, but then those things got printed into oblivion in every set. I mean, that's kind of the trade-off for this strategy is you never know with uncommons and commons how many times they're going to get reprinted. In Gutter Snipe was another one that killed me because I was picking up Gutter Snipes like crazy, and then it just seemed like every set Wizards printed another Gutter Snipe. But anyway, just some food for thought. A little bit about scraping the barrel here, and looking at bulk as a nice little way to maximize the potential. Hope you enjoyed this Market Monday video. This has been Kevin with RogueDeckBuilder.com. Thanks for watching.